Karen Alexander. Today is April 12th, 2017, and I'm here with Willie Scott. Tell us your name.
My name is Willie Scott.
And the purpose of our conversation today, Willie, is for you to help me understand the impact that Coach Harold White had on your life.
Okay.
And tell me a little bit about your history with him.
Well, I guess my history with Coach White even began before I got to the University of South Carolina. My dad was a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and from Newberry, he was in the Columbia chapter. And Coach White was also in that chapter. And we knew he was an academic advisor and coaching down at the university. So when I was making my decision about where I was going to go to school, that came into play. You know, my dad knew that he had a friend down there, a fraternity brother down there who was over academics. So this might be a good match for us to go play ball, get the work done, get the school done, all those type of things, and not be too far away from home. So when I came to the University of South Carolina, which I never even came for an official visit, Coach White was one of them, I guess, the drawing thing. Coach Evans recruited me, but Coach White was who my dad was talking to most of the time. And so after I told him that I was coming, everything just kind of came together. Kind of had plans already. He knew what I kind of did my own schedule for the first couple years, and Coach White he let me handle all that. And then I wanted to be in the fraternity, and he said, no, you can't pledge your freshman year. You'll have to wait till your second year. And plus, football was just beginning, so everything was working out pretty good. And then and Coach White was there for us all the time. And, academically, we had study hall. If we needed something done academically, he was there for us, arranging classes, books, all those type of things. And he did it all by himself. He had one little office in there by himself. Now they have like 8 people doing that same job, but he distributed out books, made sure our classes were right. He knew who we had to talk to make sure to get some help, the tutors, everything. And it's just been wonderful for that relationship has gone with so many people in the University of South Carolina Athletic Department.
Willie, tell me about your career at Carolina and beyond.
Well, you know, South Carolina, I came here as a tight end. Coach Carlin recruited me and said, you know, we're going to do something big here.
What was the year?
Okay, I got here in 1977. Now, Coach White had been here probably 72, 73. Even before that, that's why I said I knew him before I came to school. But when I got here in 1977, Coach Carlin recruited me and said, we're going to do something big here at the university. And then I wanted to go somewhere where I could play, somewhere that I wanted to do something different. And I was being recruited by a bunch of people. I did not want to leave the state of South Carolina because I knew my mother was going to go to every game. So wasn't no sense in putting that kind of burden on my daddy, you know, for her to go where she wanted to go. I had a lot of out of state, you know. I said Naval Academy, West Point, Citadel, Newberry, Furman, all over around the country, Notre Dame. But I kind of narrowed it down to staying in the state of South Carolina. I narrowed it down to Carolina, Clemson, and South Carolina State, which Coach Jeffries, I knew him probably just as long as I'd known Coach White. And Coach Jeffries, I'll go down to South Carolina State, and Coach Jeffries said, boy, I know I'm not going to get you, but you know you always have a home to come to. He said, I know I'm going to lose you to Carolina and Clemson. So I went to Clemson on an official visit. Then I decided they had a coach's change. You know, people don't realize how coaches changes can change things over. They had Red Parker, Charlie Pell took over at the end of that year, and Danny Ford would have taken. I would have had 3 coaches if I'd have gone to Clemson. But Coach Carlin came down here. They were stable. We didn't have anybody moving, and I had the same coach all 4 years. So it worked out. Worked hard my first 2 years, getting in the weight room and all those type of things. And my sophomore year, Ken Shipp was a good friend of Coach Carlin's. He was offensive coordinator at the New Orleans, at the Houston Oilers. And he had gotten into some kind of disagreement with management, and he just quit. And he came to South Carolina to help Coach Carlin out, just kind of watching and observing, and I guess a consultant, what they call it now. So he's watching me play and do some things and work out, and he pulls me to the side. He says, Willie, I've been watching you. He said, if you can get that body of yours strong enough to withstand a 16-game regular season and a 4-game preseason, you'll be a first-round draft pick. Of course, at that time, I'm like, yeah, okay, right. And he's just talking. Well, that summer, I don't know, some kind of way, I just bought into it, not the whole weightlifting. And I got really strong over my junior year, and then my junior year, we started taking in plays. You know, we weren't throwing the ball a whole lot, and George was doing well, so we were just doing all the blocking for George and catching a few passes every now and then, and things started going well. You know, George got him, what, he get 1,500 yards a freshman, junior year, and then senior year, we wound up throwing the ball a little bit more. I caught 35 passes, and the rest is history, you know, because we were the first team at the University of South Carolina to win 8 games, 2 years in a row. Then we had 2 guys in the first round and a Heisman Trophy that has never been repeated.
So was Coach instrumental when you were being recruited?
Oh, recruited during school, even during the draft. My senior year, somehow or another, I made a mistake on 2 classes. And I needed to take 24 hours to graduate. That's in 4 years. And because my grandmother, being the oldest grandchild, my grandmama said, I'm coming to see you graduate. So there's no ifs, ands, and buts about this. They told me, take 15 hours and come on back. I said, sure. So, but I did it myself. I went to to my department in health education, and I told them what I needed to do. And the head of the department said, Willie, what are you trying to do? I said, I need to take this class. I have independent study, and I need to take this other nursing class that'll suffice for this other class so I can graduate on time. Well, during during the draft was on Tuesday, and that was one of my long days of classes. Well, when they first said they were going to draft me, I said, I'm not coming. You know, Kansas City called and said, we're going to draft you and we need you to come out here. So I said, no, I'm not coming. And I said, I got class later on today and I'm not coming. Well, Coach White came in and said, you knew this was going to happen. You got to go to Kansas City and you got to come back. And I said, okay, I'll go if you guys get me back here tomorrow, because I had a speech to do for my class. So Coach White said, no, you got to go. You knew this was going to come, so don't be telling them people that you're not going to come to Kansas City. You have got to go. So, you know, there's another one right there. You know, he said, no, we're going to do this thing the right way. You're going to be ready to graduate. You'll be ready to go, but they also have to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I did that to him that time, and I also did it to him one time later on. We graduated on June the 1st, and now it was during minicamp time. And they called and said, okay, we're going to send you a plane ticket. We want you to be out here for June, in the May and June. I said, well, I'm not going to come. I can't come because I'm graduating. My grandmother's coming to see me graduate. So all those things together there, just put everything together. This guy's been part of my undergrad, before I got to college, undergrad, during the pros, even when I came back in school. You know, I was back in school in January, my freshman year. My first year playing in the pros, just to see if I wanted to go to graduate school and take some classes. So he guided me through that process too, and took some graduate classes. So Coach White has been around for a long time, and even in my working life, after I graduated from the university and was taking a couple classes, I did some volunteer work at the University of South Carolina with Coach White in academics. I worked with Sterling and a lot of those young guys, making sure the grades was right, doing the right thing, going here, going there, you know, trying to guide them through the process. And Coach White gave me the leeway to do that, and I did that from his office.
Willie, who are some of the...
I'm supposed to be talking fast.
Well, you mentioned Sterling Sharp earlier. Who are some of the other NFL players that Coach White had an impact on?
Oh, well, let's see. Talking about Ryan Bethea. I guess I'm losing my mind a little bit too here. You know, Dwayne Shivers played for a little while. I'm trying to think of some of those guys. George Rogers, of course, George. You know, that was if George would probably talk about one of the most influential people to him, it's probably going to be Coach White. Coach White and one of the trainers. One of the trainers. I think Ed Baxley went to Kansas City with me. You talk about George Schechterly, who transferred here from Penn State, who wound up getting a chance to play in the pros a little while. It's so many. I mean, we could be here naming folks. I'd have to go through and look at the rosters and tell them. And it's just not football players too. We're talking about guys who went on to medical school and real estate and being doctors and lawyers and the list goes on. And that just doesn't include football. That includes he did the academics for the entire athletic department. So that's football, basketball, baseball, softball, track. All those guys had to come through Coach White's office at some point or another.
Okay. And we were talking off camera about the African American coaches during the civil rights period. Can you kind of parlay or at least?
Well, Coach White is definitely a visionary, but I guess I grew up in a home of visionaries. My mother was one of the first African-American teachers to go to Newberry High School in 1965. And then my dad was at the black high school there, and then he went over to the high school, Newberry High School, in like 68 when they had total integration. And he was the only black coach over there. And he worked over there till 73, until I became a freshman, and they made him the assistant principal. He was one of the first assistant principals in Newberry County. It's just a matter of just being at the right place in the right time, because at that time when they were trying to change over they were moving a lot of the black coaches into different areas, and my dad just kind of worked it out. My mom was already there. Well, my dad passed away, people like Mr. Scott was in Newberry High School. I said, my mama was over there for 4 years before he even got there. So, so I've been a visionary in that area for a long time. Even in my church, I grew up, my dad was Baptist, my mother's Episcopalian. Well, in Newberry, they had 2 Episcopalian churches, and we had one minister for both of them. In about 68, Father Bird, Fred Bird, he said, I'm not doing this anymore. And he combined the 2 churches, and boy, they tell me he caught a little bit of flack about that, but it was usually 3 black kids at every Episcopalian function. It was me and my sister and James Myers. And I had to carry my birth certificate everywhere I went, because we had basketball games and all that kind of stuff. People thought I was too old and all that kind of stuff. So I've been a visionary and doing things like that for a long time, being the first this, first that, and it's just.
Now, was Coach White the only African-American coach at Carolina when you were there?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. He was the only one that was there, unless I'm losing my mind a little bit too.
So what did it mean for you to see someone in that position?
Well, even today, I look at staffs and I look at, they've done so much better here in recent years. At some point in time, there wasn't but one. And they had one to kind of keep folks in line. They needed someone to talk to the guys. Even though at that time at South Carolina, we didn't necessarily have to have that, but he was extra, because our coaches worked with us all the time, recruited us, worked with our families, but he was just the extra piece on top of the cake. And he just kind of blended everything even better together than the coaches did. Now you might have 2, 3, 4 coaches on the staff. Think about that. That's a hard job. I've been in that situation too, where you're the only black coach on the staff. That's tough, because they're expecting you to do so much. They're expecting that coach to do so much, for the guys, not just the black athletes, but for the white athletes, and then for all of them to kind of blend that thing together. And that's tough sometimes. It's a lot of responsibility. And he did it with class and grace.
Okay. Any final words that you want us to know about Coach White?
Well, I've been around some great men in my life. Of course, my dad, and had a couple uncles and things like that. But he's got to be one of the most influential persons in my life. Coach Carlin was in there. But usually any decisions that I made, especially after I lost my dad a few years, almost 20-something years ago, I'd call Coach White and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this situation? Or is this a good idea? It's not a good idea. And we just had a good time talking. You know, every time I go by and see him, hey, Coach, I just stop by to say hello, let me know if I can do anything for you. Same thing now. When I see him now, I usually see him over at Lexington a little bit. His son graduated from Lexington, his grandson graduated from Lexington High School, and I'd be at some of the games. And Coach White, what are you doing over here? He said, well, it's my grandson out there, and I think he's at the university now. So, but he's been one of the most influential people in my life for, I say I graduated when 76 and graduated 77, so you're talking about 30, 40 years.
Okay. Thank you so much, Willie.
Thank you.